There's an interesting halacha in Ilchot Yisurei Bi'ah. This is actually not an advanced class. But in Ilchot Yisurei Bi'ah, Perek Yod Aleph, halacha Tet Vav, Rambam brings a particular chumrah. And the reason I want to study this with you is that there is this attitude that, any chumrah, any stringency is always a good thing. It's always better to be strict. It's always better to just follow the strict opinion. I believe it's good to be strict and to be very strict. My father, alav shalom, was incredibly strict with us, but it was only with things that were in the halakha, Rambam, Shulchan Aruch. He was very, very strict. The question is, are stringencies always a good thing? And I want to read to you the Lashon of Rambam. וכן זה שתמצא במקצת מקומות ותמצא תשובות במקצת הגאונים. Rambam says that there was a particular custom, and this custom is further brought in some of the teshuvot hageonim. So you have teshuvot hageonim, and plus is a minhag. So you have minhag Yisrael Dinu, people love to say that, and plus the geonim, teshuvot hageonim. And what was the stringency that was practiced? שיולדת זכר לא תשמש בתתה עד סוף 40, that if a woman gave birth to a boy, she would not be with her husband for 40 days. Let me explain the basis of the stringency. The basis of the stringency, faulty basis. If a woman gives birth to a boy, then she would automatically be teme'ah 7 days. And then all the damim she saw after the 7 days for the next 33 days, there's called dam toha, and she would not be teme'ah as a result of dam toha, right? So there is an actual halacha that we don't have dam toha. Bisman hazeh, there's no dam toha. So if a woman gives birth to a boy, she would be teme'ah 7 days just by virtue of the fact that she gave birth to a boy. If later on she had dam, or at the time she had dam, she would automatically be teme'ah without regard to the fact that she gave birth to a boy. She would have to count 7 clean days, right? If there was dam, which is usually the case. We don't have dam to'ah b'zman hazeh. Similarly, nekeva, in the case of nekeva, it would be 14 days that she would be teme'ah, just by virtue of the fact that she gave birth to a nekeva, whether she saw dam or she didn't see dam. And then there would be dam to'ah for 66 days, right? So again, because bizman hazeh there's no dam to'ah, this particular humrah said as follows. Now, I just want to give you that background. So again, the background was, the original law was, when I say original law, din Torah. Din Torah was that if you give birth to a zachar, 7 days of tum'ah, and then the 33 days after that, even if she has dam, it's called dam to'ah, and she's tehora. If you give birth to a nekeva, 14 days, she's automatically teme'ah. And then if there was dam after that, it would be teme'ah, that would be dam to'ah, and she would, for 66 days, she would be able to ignore the re'iyat dam. Then, Hachamim said there's no more dam to'ah. There's no dam to'ah b'zman hazeh, that's a law, that's halacha. Rambam makes pesach like that, there's no machloket on that. So it comes out that bizman hazeh, if a woman gives birth to a zachar, of course she's teme'ah 7 days. If in addition there was re'iyat dam, she would have to count 7 clean days. Similarly for nekeva, minimum of 14 days for nekeva, but if in addition there was also re'iyat dam, she would have to count 7 clean days. Because there is no dam to'ah. What this woman said is that if she gives birth to a zachar, automatically teme'ah for 40 days. Why? I mean, if she didn't see blood, or if she saw blood, count 7 days and then be clean. That's halakha, right? Halakha today is count 7 days and you're clean. They said no, automatically, just to be extra safe, and just to make sure people don't confuse the law of dam to'ah, for 40 days she's teme'ah, she gives birth to a zachar. In the case of nekeva, for 80 days she's teme'ah, she gives birth to a nekeva, whether she had dam or whether she didn't have dam. So Rambam is addressing that. And תמצא תשובות במקצת גאונים, שיולדת זכר לא תשמש מיתתה עד סוף 40 יום. יולדת זכר gives birth to a boy, that's 40 days of tum'ah. ויולדת נקבה אחר 80, יולדת נקבה is 80 days of טומאה. ואף על פי שלא ראתה דם, and irrespective of that she saw or didn't see דם. אלא בתוך השבעה, אין זה מנהג. אף על פי שלא ראתה דם, אלא בתוך השבעה. Even though she didn't see any dam within the first 7 days of giving birth, right? She saw dam afterwards, right? And it would be then dam toha. So it says en ze minhag. This is incorrect. This is not a minhag. Interesting. It says en ze minhag. Look what Anabam says. I love that lashon en ze minhag. What we just said, timsa b'miksat mekamot, that they do this and this. Isn't that a minhag? Anabam says en ze minhag. You can't have a minhag that's based upon a faulty understanding of the halakha, right? You can't just invent things out of thin air. He continues, he says, Ela ta'uti, it's a mistake. Be'otana teshuvot, and those Geonim that wrote those teshuvot, it's a mistake. Again, you can't just pull things out of thin air and say, now this is going to be asur. No. If there's a halachic basis, we have, for example, we have halak bet Yosef in the meat. That's halakha. That's not humrah. There's certain bedikot we have to do. So there's halakha. You have to be bodek the knife. The knife of the shechita is not badu. Balminan, the meat is nevela. That's not a humrah. That's a halakha. But there's humrot that are just invented out of thin air, that have no basis. So Rambam says, and I just want to read to you, he says, Enza minhag, it's not a minhag, meaning, don't tell me minhag Yisrael dinu, for example, right? Minhag Yisrael dinu means something else, by the way, but it's not the point. That's a separate class. But then he says, Ela ta'uti, it's a mistake. Meaning, if people are following a practice that is based upon misunderstanding, it's a mistake, and you don't have to follow it. V'derech minut, be'otana mekomot, he says, and this is actually a type of minut, right? The people who do this are sectarians, or to be more precise. He doesn't say these people don't have to alek l'olam haba. He's saying what they're doing is a type of minut. The minim, they didn't believe in the Torah shebe'al peh. Now think of that for a second. If you have a humrah, and the humrah ignores what the Chachamim said on the subject. The Chachamim said this is mutar. The poskim say the Rishonim, Anambam, Shulchan Aruch, the Rosh, the Rif, they say it's mutar. And I say no, it's asur. It's a type of minut, right? Umin as-sadokin lamedu davar zeh. They learned this type of attitude from the sadokim. The sadokim was similar to the Karaites. They negated the rabbinic tradition, the Kabbalah, the Chachamim, they negated it. I think that's just such an important idea, that not every humrah is good. There are humrot that are based upon burud, upon lack of knowledge, based upon people don't know what the halakha is and they invent the humrah. And they say, oh, it's minhag, oh, minhag is to do like this. No. If you have a minhag that's based on burud, that minhag has to be mitbater. You have to annul that minhag, right? Or mitzvah lechofan, and it's actually mitzvah to cause these people, to force them to stop this practice. Kedei le'osim milibam, because you have to remove this mistake from their heart. U'lachaziran be'chachamim. The correct way is to follow the chachamim. We have the Gemara. We have the poskim who explain the Gemara, right? And we know what the halakha is. And there's no doubt as to the halakha. Then don't just say the humrah. Don't say, but what if, and what if, and what if, and what this, and what that. The halakha is what the halakha is, and has to be adhered to. We do not. Mekilim, in my house, growing up with my father, there was no such thing as to even think, like for a second, that we can be mekilim with my macharonim after a meal. It wasn't like even, yes, my macharonim chova. That's halakha. There was no such thing as to say, we can have this cheese because, the cheese is made from, whatever chemicals. No, gevinat akum is asur. End of story. I'm not talking about the Chachamim said is asur. I'm talking about inventions. This is an example of an invention. There's other examples of inventions, right? When there's an invention, when you invent humrot, you're actually disrespecting the Chachamim. And you're actually removing the authority of the Torah Shebe'al Peh. Because when you say, I'm going to follow this Humrah, you're giving authority to the Humrah. And in a sense, you're displacing the Torah Shebe'al Peh. You're saying the Humrah that you have is more important than the Torah Shebe'al Peh, which says it's allowed. Be very careful, that's minut. Derech minut, certainly. Ulachazirah divrei Chachamim. Right? So in this case, Shetispor Shivat Yemei Nekiyim Bilvad, let her count 7 clean days. She counts 7 clean days, end of story. She's Tehora Leba'ala.